You're mocking me, aren't you?
Oh, no. Butt-looking alien! Where?
Hey everybody, today we watched the new movie, Annihilation. Just a heads up real quick, we highly suggest this movie, but we are going to feature spoilers here, so if you want to see this movie, which I suggest you do, go see it and don't watch this video. If you don't care about spoilers, then we suggest you keep watching. So, without further ado, today we saw Annihilation. Aiden, what was the plot of Annihilation?
Well, I'll give a little warning before the spoilers start. The basic plot is a meteor lands in the middle of a lighthouse in Florida.
It's in a state park somewhere.
I think it's Florida. The gators and the swamps give me that impression, but I could be wrong. And everyone, it creates this thing called the ripple that expands out from the meteor. People go into the ripple, they don't come back out. And so Natalie Portman and a few other people, a psychologist, a physicist. Natalie Portman is a biologist. There's a psychologist,
the leader
a
lady's
physicist,
psychologist, yeah.
a physicist, a Mexican lady,
Paramedic.
Mexican lesbian paramedic. I couldn't remember what the fuck she was supposed to be because she don't do nothing. But anyway,
And then there was also the mom lady who I don't remember what she was.
getting oh man, what was she supposed to be? But anyway, getting into the spoilers, they go into the ripple, and the ripple causes strange, quick mutations in everything. Everything within the ripple kind of gets flipped on its head, and it mutates and continues growing out of control and gets real fucking weird. And the closer you are to the meteor, the weirder it gets. And yeah, oh boy, I don't know how to describe the ending. They fight a big alligator. They fight a bear that can make human screams and is really creepy. And then she gets the lighthouse. She crawls inside the lighthouse's vagina. The lighthouse is like a veiny, rooty womb. And she sees her husband, who was a soldier on an earlier expedition, kill himself while an alien maybe replaces him, or maybe the alien blows itself up and he's still around. And she crawls into the big vagina, and the psychologist shoots stardust out and becomes a stardust vagina, and she bleeds into it, and it makes the Day the Earth Stood Still alien. And it tries to become her, and she blows it up, but maybe she blew herself up, and maybe the alien's the thing that came out, and then that's the end. It's open to interpretation, not in the way The Last Jedi is, where you can either interpret it as good because you have brain damage, or bad because you have an IQ above 6. Connor, what'd you think of Annihilation?
Annihilation was a very good movie. I liked Ex Machina quite a bit. I really liked that movie, and when seeing the trailers for this movie, I thought this movie looks weird. I don't really understand what the trailers are telling me, because the trailers, it's impossible to make a good trailer for this movie, just based on what it's about. But it really did a great job. Like the movie has a plot where we start caring about all the characters on the expedition, which was an all-female cast, and we even had the lesbian character. They didn't really rub that in your face in like a way where it's like, hey, this bitch is a lesbian, the rest of these people are women. That's like unimportant to the plot. It's just like if this movie was all men, like people wouldn't really mention it. That's unimportant. So it had this diverse cast of, there was an African American lady, there was a lesbian lady, and they were all women. And of course we had like Oscar Isaac as a side character being her husband, but it wasn't like forced down your throat. It wasn't terrible in that way. Like Black Panther, you know, you might watch our review and be like, they were kind of racist about it or something, which would be a misinterpretation, which we tried to explain, but at the same time it kind of came off as a tiny bit racist if you're a retarded person. But this one actually did a really good job doing this diversity, not forcing it down your throat, and it's not like a million news articles were written about this movie. This is just a really solid movie with a really solid cast that happens to be mostly female, which was kind of awesome when you think about it, because it did what Ghostbusters was supposed to do, but the studio and stuff didn't force it down your throat, didn't call you a sexist if you hated it. But anyways, all the acting was really good. Natalie Portman did a particularly good job, which, you know, sometimes Natalie Portman is hit or miss for me. Sometimes she's terrible, sometimes she's pretty good. She did a good fucking job in this movie. This movie to me was like a cross between The Day the Earth Stood Still. The alien reminded me a lot of the alien from The Day the Earth Stood Still, at least in looks, and I'm talking like the 50s movie. It had obviously kind of remnants of the director's style in Ex Machina. It had aspects of The Thing, which I think were the strongest, and it kind of felt like a 70s horror sci-fi movie where we have a lot of like the synth sound effects. The soundtrack is great because it kind of ear rapes you at the end, and unlike Mother, which just ear rapes you in the worst way, this movie does a good job of ear raping you, which sounds weird, but truly the soundtrack is fantastic. Everything about it sounds super good, and I really enjoyed that. And then on top of that, I think, you know, the aliens were kind of ambiguous, where they weren't evil. The alien, you know, it was based a lot around biology. The big theme in this movie is like she's like cells divided and created everything on Earth. So now we have these foreign cells that come down and create this alien life. The alien acted in self-defense, which you could see it as an evil alien, but in reality the alien really didn't do anything evil. It was scared, it was confused, it was kind of like a baby being born through the kind of vagina lighthouse. And that also sounds like something I would think is really retarded, but they did it really well. So that was really cool. I thought that the aliens, you know, it wasn't like most movies where the alien comes down, hyper intelligent, great technology. No, this was just a new form of life that formed, and it saw Natalie Portman and kind of tried to adapt to its surroundings. And even the mutated creatures were overpowering the humans, but it just kind of felt like the new creatures that were getting mutated by this alien cells just, you know, disrupted the food chain, changed it up, and these animals were over-adapted and became over-adapted to their environment. Thus, they're so much stronger than the humans. They aren't hunted by the humans, so the humans are kind of back thrown into the food chain, and, you know, that's really cool to me. And, of course, as I said, this movie's really good looking. When they're in the Ripple, the cinematography's just fantastic throughout the whole movie. And it was genuinely scary. It didn't really rely on jump scares. Like when Oscar Isaac, spoiler alert here, Oscar Isaac, there's a point where he's cutting open another person on his team, and it's like very suspenseful and disturbing, and it's cool, but it's like a lot of people are going crazy in this environment because the cells are kind of changing them as well. The people in this environment also are starting to mutate, like the alligators, the bear, the wolves, the deer that we see. And not all the animals are, you know, these vicious predators. We see like deer, we see fish, and everything looked super beautiful. I thought the plant life looked super beautiful. I thought it was cool that some of the plant life started to gain the DNA of humans, so it was growing to look in the form of a human being, even though it wasn't human, and it just kind of, it was really cool. So a lot of the cinematography just looked fantastic, and I thought this was definitely, like, Ex Machina was a fantastic movie. We have a review up from long ago. It's just like a commentary review, like our early reviews, which you can check out if you want. But I thought it was definitely a step up from Ex Machina. and it really used all of the actors and stuff in a great way. The movie ended ambiguous, where it seems like Oscar Isaac may or may not have been an alien. He most likely was an alien, I think. But Natalie Portman, you could also see kind of her eyes doing the weird-ass thing that Oscar Isaac's eyes were doing. So she likely mutated too, whether it was the original Natalie Portman mutated or it was a whole nother creature, because it's kind of hard where she doesn't remember what happened really between the time of the aliens getting burnt and her coming back. So who knows what happened in that time period. She could very well be the original Natalie Portman mutated or an alien, and it's left ambiguous up to the audience. Obviously there's a couple sequel books, hopefully, and I don't think they will, but hopefully they just leave it at this. But honestly, this movie was just fantastic. I think it was the best movie I've seen in a long time. And Blade Runner was our favorite movie of last year. Pretty, unanimously agreed between the two of us. But I honestly thought this was better than Blade Runner. Like, this was a fantastic movie. I would definitely advise seeing it, which I guess I'll say again in my recommendation. But Aiden, what did you think of this film?
Shit, I got something. Annihilation is a very smart film. Our theater has a student discount on Thursdays. We're recording this on a Thursday. And so the theater was fairly full. I mean, it wasn't packed, but there was probably 20 other people in the theater. The credits started to roll. I stood up and looked back at the college students and their girlfriends making confused faces at each other and groaning. And I felt, I got this feeling that everybody else in the theater hated the movie.
Oh, yeah.
Because it did not make sense to them. But I loved it. It reminded me a lot of my favorite movie, The Thing, and
It was a lot.
I really didn't know a lot about the movie, but even from the earliest shot, they have this little intro where they're talking to Natalie Portman. Immediately after that, they show the meteor come across the side of the Earth, fall and hit the lighthouse.
Yep.
And immediately I was reminded of the start of John Carpenter's The Thing. Before the title card comes up, the UFO falling into the Arctic. And I feel like it took a lot of inspiration from that. The guy...
Oh, definitely.
Spoilers. The guy that Oscar Isaac cuts open, they leave his body in the pool area, and the cells mutate. They stretch his whole body across the side of the pool into this huge, like, fungus skeleton.
Oh, that was an awesome shot, and the practical effects looked really great in the movie.
Mm-hmm. It was, super reminiscent of The Thing, and it reminded me a lot of other horror movies of the era, where it was slow and creepy in an atmospheric way more than anything. Invasion of the Body Snatchers came to mind a lot. And really there was 3 big action set pieces. The alligator was like the early one, where they find out that shit's kind of weird. But the one that I liked the best was the bear. The bear, anyone who it killed, it would like absorb a part of them, and it would be the last part of them that was alive. And so the bear would open its mouth and the screams of dead characters would come out, and it was legitimately pretty freaky. But even when the alien, before it morphs into a clone of Natalie Portman, looks roughly like the 1950s, The Day the Earth Stood Still alien. But even then, the music in the movie, it starts out as like this atmospheric, instrumental, acoustic guitar stuff that's creepy in its own right. And then as it gets to the lighthouse, it becomes this horrible, droning, creepy synthetic music that is so fitting. Even though
the music really stood out.
The alien doesn't look great. I mean, it has its style.
I feel like stylistically it was intentional,
but
where they didn't want to go over
partnered
the top.
with the music. The first time the alien moves, at first it's just standing there and it still has these tentacles in it. The first time it moves its leg, it's along with the music, and the music just feels like it's the presence of the alien itself, and it's genuinely creepy, even though you take away the music and I don't think it would have the impact it did, which is a really, really good compliment to the music. The vaginal stuff was very obvious to me. I think some people would call it a little tacky, but in a way it's kind of the birthplace of the alien and the birthplace of the new Natalie Portman. As she goes further and further, the further you go in, the more you get infected. So even if she was the one who came out, the original Natalie Portman, she's been so affected just by being in there that she's wildly changed to the point where she asks the Oscar Isaac, who's probably not the man she married, probably just some fucking alien that looks like him and maybe has his memories. She says, "Are you him?" And he's like, "I don't know." And doesn't fucking matter at that point. Is she her?
I thought that Oscar Isaac idea was really cool. The whole movie, how he had the threat of it being the alien couldn't really live in the outside world. It was throwing up blood and stuff, and it was kind of almost like it was being birthed into the world. It adjusted to the world, survived the illness, and then it's like, to the audience and the characters, they don't know if that's the real Oscar Isaac.
Yeah.
And I don't think it matters either.
Yeah.
So that was really cool.
The movie is also beautiful in its own way. As they go, there's so much weird shit, especially when it comes to the plant life. There's not a whole lot of animals you see. They're used pretty sparingly as big set pieces, but you see the plant life, the fungus is all multicolored, and because it's evolving as it grows, it starts out like green, gray, and then becomes red, blue, and as it continues up, and they have that splash all over all the buildings and all the trees, and it's really, really stunning visually.
I also thought, I'm sorry to kind of cut in on you again, but I thought it was really cool, especially the deer really stood out to me, because I thought it was cool that their antlers were combined with the plant life, all the cells between the earth, the alien, and the animal, the plant, and the alien cells were all combining, and seeing the deer with the antlers that were made out of twigs and stuff, I thought that was super, that looked super cool. That was really creative.
They also do a great job of emotionally investing you in the side characters.
Oh, definitely.
The psychiatrist comes off as kind of manipulative at a few points. But even then, you understand what she wants, and they reveal that she has cancer, and she's just doing this because she's out of options. All the characters who go in, they're essentially out of options. Yeah. And she goes in there, and you see her get morphed into a hideous, beautiful space vagina that just keeps rotating in on itself, and it's so weird and stunning visually, but you kind of feel bad for her. And the physicist girl, she kind of just gives up. She says, "You want to fight it," she wants to find it, but she just kind of gives in and becomes one with it and is turned into a plant. People who stick around too long, their genes just get flipped inside out and they become plants, and she's just like, fuck it, that's what I'm going to do, I'm not going any further into this shit. And it's really good storytelling that you can care so much about characters who just are along for the ride with the main characters. And visually stunning, soundtrack is just godly, the story is interesting and just kind of and genuinely scary, despite the fact that it doesn't look anything like a horror movie. It's genuinely more scary than any movie I've seen in years. Far scarier than Insidious and
It's scary,
Annabelle,
but it's not a horror movie.
No,
Don't mistake
no.
this for, because it's almost like a drama. It follows character motivations, and even the side characters, like the motivations are great. Cancer lady's gonna die anyway, so she figures she might as well try to complete the task to A, figure out what this is and see if she can stop it, but B, also find out what she can figure out from this phenomenon. Natalie Portman is in it because scientifically she's interested in it, and she no longer feels like she has a purpose to live. Oscar Isaac is like her entire life. She has an affair with this other black teacher guy, bald dude, and she isn't really. She feels guilty about it instantly. And without Oscar Isaac, she kind of feels pointless in life, which we feel later when she kind of unites again with Oscar Isaac. He's cured, but we don't know if it's the alien version or the original version, and it doesn't really matter to her. So when she wants to go forward, it's because she thinks, well, you know, she doesn't have anything to live for. She wants resolution to figure out what's going on. The other characters after the first lady dies, who we actually get a pretty good connection with through a dialogue scene with Natalie Portman.
Yeah.
So she's not even really forgotten, even though she's the first character to die, you know. We feel for that character, so we want her to succeed, and we understand why she's risking her life, and we connect to that character. And then the other two characters, the physicist and the paramedic, they want to turn back, and Natalie Portman kind of selfishly, and because they don't know that Oscar Isaac is her husband, and that's why she wants to move forward, she convinces them, saying like, oh, you know, the only way we're going to get out of this, the best way is to follow the shoreline, which Natalie Portman knows, or at least assumes is probably not true, and knows it's pretty much a suicide mission. But she also knows without those two people, it's going to be a lot harder to follow her goals. So while Natalie Portman is kind of selfless in what she's doing, it's also sort of selfish what she's doing. And, you know, Cancer Lady has no reason to live, so she figures if an animal kills me on the way, or disease gets me or whatever, it doesn't even matter because I already have cancer, I'm going to die. So when her character finally gets her resolution, which is to basically become the flower lights thing and floats off, it's a pretty good resolution to her character because she's going to die anyways. She saw the lighthouse, she figured it out, so her character follows her and follows through with her goal. She gets her resolution, so it's kind of cool when she dies. I think all the characters, no matter how small in screen time, like the mom whose daughter died, who's the first girl to die,
yeah,
they all have a really good resolution. So I think the characters are really good. I don't feel like there's a character that's just like, oh, this character's here is cannon fodder. Like, yes, there are the other characters on the expedition are essentially cannon fodder, but they do a really good job in the movie fleshing them out so we understand and we care for these characters. Mm-hmm. We understand each one of their motivations, but we also understand, so we actually feel for them when they die. We understand why they're being selfish for their reasons, and it actually ends up being really good. Like, there isn't a single character I'm like, this person doesn't make sense, I don't care about them, they're useless, which is something I felt a lot in, say, Black Panther, where all the characters felt really stupid.
Yeah. Except
Michael B. Jordan was okay.
But anyway, in the end, the movie is just a really good blend of genres. It's sci-fi and drama and touch of horror and a little bit of action, and it's got really everything going on, and it manages to pull it off. It's not a fucking clusterfuck. It's like all these pieces come together in a believable and interesting way. That kind of, you see this plot, and at first you're like, what the fuck is going on? And then as the characters learn more, the pieces kind of slide together, but then in the end, it's still left kind of open to your own interpretation, thoughts.
Yep.
And the sequel books apparently ruined the fuck out of that, but those are never going to get made into movies. So,
No.
Connor, would you recommend Annihilation?
As I've said basically multiple times in this review, I would definitely suggest Annihilation. I thought it was, like I said, probably the best movie I've seen. I think it's better than Blade Runner, so it's pretty much the best movie I've seen in the last couple years, because I thought Blade Runner was probably the best movie I've seen in a couple years. Probably the last movie I liked really better that I saw was 2014's Nightcrawler. Like, Nightcrawler was probably the last movie I actually liked better than this one. And it's a pretty big toss-up. I think this is definitely one of the best movies of the decade so far. At least in like the top 20 for me. Like, it's one of those movies where I think it's definitely worth watching if you are a kind of a film fan. And it's kind of refreshing because I do like superhero movies. I like Star Wars movies when they're done well, even though that's pretty rare at this point. But, you know, sometimes it's kind of nice, other than shitty horror movies and shitty popcorn action films, to watch a movie where I say, damn, that felt original. Because this movie was like, even though I think I could, like, if I was to describe it, I'd kind of be like, it's a cross of all these movies. It's not like any other movie I've seen before.
No.
The characters are great. The movie is beautiful. The acting's great, even though, you know, I don't expect the most from some, like, Natalie Portman, I never really expect the most from, so I kind of underestimated a lot of things. The trailers make the movie look like shit. But
Yeah,
honestly, in my opinion, it definitely is one of the best movies of the decade, and it's one of those movies where you go in, you watch it, and you're kind of like, I don't know if this is going to be good. Then you watch it, you start to get really enticed in like the first 5 minutes, and then even though it's not the most action-packed, it's not the most eventful movie, it's great, you know? And I know a lot of our subscribers probably wouldn't like this movie if you're kind of like an action movie fan, you know, Marvel movie fan, which I feel like a lot of our subscribers are, and that's fine. So do be mindful that it's kind of like a movie where you're watching it and you kind of think about it. It's a really big character piece. It's a lot about just enjoying what you're watching as a setting. It's not an action-packed movie. It is it's a pretty scary movie at times. Like, it's intense. It's more of a thriller than a horror movie. So if you're like, well, I like horror movies, it's not really going to fill your horror thing. It's not really an action movie. So keep that in mind. I would definitely recommend the movie, but keep in mind that like Aiden said, a lot of people in the theater didn't really love it. And it's one of those things where I think you kind of got to be in the mindset that this is kind of a movie where you have to interpret a lot of things. It kind of makes you think. So if you're kind of just in for it, like I'm more of just like a fan of cool action movies, you're probably not going to like it, and that's fine. That's your opinion. But if you are into like the more deep side of movies, like this type of movie, it's a lot of thinking. If you've seen Ex Machina, you're gonna love this fucking movie. So keep that in mind. But yeah, I'd suggest it. So Aiden, would you suggest this movie?
If you're gonna go to a movie to get a blowjob with your girlfriend because tickets are $6, you're gonna want to go to Black Panther because everyone in this theater.
No, you're not gonna want to go to Black Panther because Black Panther's gonna be a busy theater. This would be a good one because no one's gonna be watching it after the first day.
Take her to The Greatest Showman or something.
You go to what you do is you go to the $12 show and then you guys watch and you're like, oh shit, this movie's boring. Then you start getting some head,
But you're not going to get any enjoyment out of this movie unless you're willing to sit down, put some effort into watching, put some thought into watching.
Yeah, definitely.
For people outside of North America, this movie is Netflix original. Netflix original. Released direct to Netflix today.
I'm glad it's
for
not
everyone
Netflix
outside of
original
America.
here because I would not have watched it. I just don't even bother.
So
mostly.
I mean, if you're in fucking Europe or fucking swinging on the vines in Brazil or getting your hand chopped off in a factory in China. Go ahead and watch this shit for free. You probably got a Netflix subscription or a friend that's got one. This movie is literally 100% free to you. You have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
But I mean, I would definitely recommend it to anybody who's actually into movies
Also,
and not just
if you
Marvel.
are from Europe or something, I can see how on Netflix you might be enticed to turn this off after the first 10 minutes if you're, but give it time. That's what I'm saying. But yeah, Aiden, continue. I'm sorry.
But yeah, it's very good. And if you're serious about film in any capacity besides watching Black Panther go pew pew bang bang and punch the other Black Panther,
My suit's better than yours, Black Panther.
you're probably gonna enjoy this movie on some, if not a lot of levels. And I would recommend it to anybody who has an IQ above liking The Last Jedi.
So yeah.
Oh man, can you imagine how much better Star Wars Episode 8 would have been if Rian Johnson got,
Fired.
run over by a truck before he could start filming or something?